What if I told you that every night when you lay your head on your pillow, you're actually stepping into the most powerful manifestation chamber known to humanity? That while your body rests, your subconscious mind becomes a divine workshop where miracles are not just possible, but inevitable. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Tonight, something extraordinary is about to happen. As you prepare for sleep, you're not simply ending another day. You're entering what Florence Scovel Shinn called a sacred space prepared by infinite spirit, where the very gates of wealth swing open and divine provision flows without a single obstruction. Has this ever happened to you? You've gone to bed worried about money, stressed about bills, anxious about your financial future, only to wake up with an inexplicable sense of peace, or perhaps even discover an unexpected opportunity waiting in your inbox. This isn't coincidence. This is spiritual law in action. While the world sleeps, while your conscious mind finally quiets its endless chatter of doubt and limitation, your subconscious becomes what I like to call the divine receiver, completely open, utterly receptive, and perfectly aligned with the frequency of abundance that governs the entire universe. You see, most people approach sleep as merely a biological necessity, a time for physical restoration. But what you're about to discover might surprise you. Sleep is actually your most sacred appointment with wealth itself, not the kind of wealth that comes through grinding and striving, but the effortless abundance that flows when you align with spiritual law. Tonight, we're going to explore how ancient wisdom meets modern manifestation, how the simple act of listening to specific abundance affirmations while you sleep can literally reprogram your financial reality at the deepest level. We're talking about transforming not just your bank account, but your entire relationship with money, prosperity, and your own divine worth. The truth is, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. It simply accepts whatever information you consistently feed it. And during those precious hours of sleep, when your logical mind stops interfering, when your doubts finally quiet down, that's when the magic happens. That's when wealth, consciousness gets installed like software into the hard drive of your soul. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this over a century ago when she wrote about the power of the sleeping state to magnetize miracles. She knew that when you enter what she called this holy appointment with the law of abundance, you're not just hoping for change, you're commanding it through the divine authority of your aligned subconscious mind. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share with you has the power to transform not just your sleep, but your entire financial destiny. We're about to dive deep into the sacred mechanics of overnight abundance, where every affirmation becomes a seed planted in the fertile soil of infinite possibility. If these revelations open something within you, I'd love to have you subscribe. This channel is where we explore the deep connections between consciousness and wealth that most people never discover. Think about this for a moment. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. Your presence here right now, at this exact moment in your life, is part of what spiritual teachers call a divine pattern. There's something profound happening behind the scenes of your journey, something that goes far beyond mere coincidence or random chance. The fact that you're here, listening to these words about abundance and transformation, reveals that you're being guided toward a perfect realignment with universal law. Here's a hidden truth that most people never discover. Every delay you've experienced, every financial setback that left you questioning your worth, every moment when prosperity seemed just out of reach, none of it was punishment. It was preparation. The universe has been orchestrating your readiness for this very moment of awakening. You see, Spirit has never withheld good from you. Not once. Not ever. All the supply you've been seeking, all the health you've been praying for, all the love and success that feels so distant, it's already completed in divine mind. It already bears your name. It's already vibrating toward you at frequencies beyond what your physical senses can detect. But here's where the real revelation begins to unfold. Your subconscious mind has been programmed by years of worldly conditioning to expect struggle, to anticipate scarcity, to brace for disappointment. These aren't your true thoughts. They're inherited patterns, learned behaviors, societal imprints that have created invisible barriers between you and your natural birthright of abundance. During sleep, something miraculous happens. These barriers begin to dissolve. Your conscious mind, with all its learned limitations and fearful projections, finally steps aside. Your subconscious becomes like fertile ground, ready to receive new seeds of possibility. And when you feed it the right vibrations, the right frequencies, the right spiritual truths during those sacred hours, transformation occurs at the deepest, cellular level. The ancient mystics understood this process intimately. They knew that true manifestation doesn't happen through force or desperate effort, but through divine alignment. When you surrender into sleep while listening to abundance affirmations, you're not just hoping for change, you're participating in the very mechanics of creation itself. Your brain waves shift into theta and delta frequencies, the same states that shamans and spiritual masters have accessed for millennia to perform what the world calls miracles. In these states, your mind becomes incredibly receptive to new programming. Every word of abundance you hear begins to overwrite decades of scarcity programming. Every affirmation of wealth starts dissolving the invisible contracts you unknowingly signed with limitation. This isn't positive thinking or wishful imagination. This is sacred science. Neuroscience now confirms what spiritual teachers have known for centuries, that repetitive exposure to specific frequencies and affirmations during sleep can literally rewire your neural pathways, creating new thought patterns that naturally attract different outcomes. Now, I want to go even deeper into this transformation process, because understanding the mechanics behind overnight abundance programming will revolutionize not just how you sleep, but how you relate to money, success, and your own infinite potential. The impact of what happens during those 8 hours of divine programming extends far beyond the bedroom. It shapes your decisions, influences your actions, and ultimately determines the trajectory of your entire financial destiny. What's fascinating is that beneath all the surface turbulence of your financial life, the bills, the budgets, the banking alerts, there flows what spiritual masters have called the golden river of prosperity. This isn't metaphorical language. It's a living reality that exists beyond the physical realm. This river has been flowing beneath your life since the moment you were born, constant and unending, never diminished by any appearance of lack or struggle you might be experiencing. Most people live their entire lives walking on dry ground, completely unaware that just beneath their feet flows an infinite stream of divine abundance. They make decisions based on scarcity, create strategies rooted in fear, and exhaust themselves trying to squeeze water from stones, all while standing directly above the most abundant source of prosperity in existence. The revelation that changes everything is this: you don't need to create abundance. You don't need to attract it, manifest it, or earn it through some complex spiritual gymnastics. You simply need to dip into what's already flowing. You need to step down from the harsh terrain of struggle and immerse yourself in the golden current that has been waiting for your recognition all along. During sleep, when your analytical mind stops building dams of doubt and limitation, this river naturally begins to surface. Your subconscious becomes like a divining rod, naturally drawn to the wealth frequency that's been calling your name. This is why some people wake up with million-dollar ideas, why breakthrough solutions appear in dreams, why morning inspiration often carries the seeds of life-changing transformation. But here's where the journey takes a profound turn. As you allow yourself to recognize this underlying prosperity, you begin to enter what can only be described as a sanctuary, not a physical place, but a state of consciousness where divine law reigns supreme. In this inner sanctuary, something magical happens. Your spoken word begins to merge with faith in ways that create what mystics call radiant decrees. These aren't ordinary affirmations or wishful thinking. When you speak from this sanctuary state during sleep programming, your words carry the authority of spiritual law itself. They become living commands that summon wealth from every corner of creation. Behind the scenes of the visible world, invisible forces begin responding to your voice with the same obedience that water shows to gravity. This process reveals the hidden mechanics of true manifestation. Most people try to create change from the outside in, working harder, pushing against circumstances, forcing outcomes through will and effort. But the sanctuary approach works from the inside out, transforming the fundamental frequencies that determine what flows into your experience. If these teachings resonated with your soul tonight, a simple like tells me this message found the right person and helps others discover these same abundant secrets. Think about the most successful people you know, not just financially, but those who seem to navigate life with an almost effortless grace. What you're witnessing isn't luck or privilege, but the natural result of someone whose inner sanctuary has been activated. They make decisions from abundance rather than scarcity. Their mindset operates from a place where limitation isn't even considered as a viable option. The impact of this shift extends into every area of life because prosperity isn't just about money. It's about the unlimited nature of divine supply itself. When you align with this golden river, you don't just attract financial abundance. You begin experiencing abundance in relationships, health, creativity, opportunities, and joy. Now, I want to reveal the specific techniques that activate this sanctuary state during sleep, because understanding how to consciously enter this divine realm transforms your 8 hours of rest into 8 hours of active wealth programming. The revelations that emerge from this practice often surprise people with their simplicity and their power. The moment you understand that you're stepping into what Scripture calls the sleep of the beloved, everything shifts. This isn't the restless tossing and turning of those burdened by worry, nor the shallow rest of minds trapped in cycles of anxiety. This is the blessed, holy sleep of someone who has finally recognized their true identity, one who is cradled in the invisible arms of infinite love and abundance. Behind the scenes of ordinary consciousness lies this profound truth. You are counted among the beloved, not because of what you've accomplished or failed to accomplish, not because of your bank balance or your mistakes, but simply because of who you are at the deepest level. When this recognition dawns, your entire relationship with sleep transforms from a mere biological function into a sacred communion with divine source. The impact of this shift in perspective is immediate and powerful. Your nervous system begins to release decades of accumulated tension. Your breath naturally deepens. That chronic background anxiety about money, about security, about whether you're doing enough or being enough, starts to dissolve into something far more supportive, a gentle knowing that you are held, you are seen, and you are provided for. This is where the hidden mechanics of true abundance begin to reveal themselves. Gratitude doesn't become something you have to manufacture or perform. It rises naturally from your heart, like a spring bubbling up from deep underground. You begin to recognize the safety that has always surrounded you, the love that has never abandoned you, the provision that has consistently found ways to reach you even in your darkest moments. The revelation here transforms your entire approach to manifestation. Most people exhaust themselves trying to convince the universe of their worthiness, pleading and straining to prove they deserve good things. But when you understand your beloved status, you realize that none of that struggle was ever necessary. You don't have to earn divine love. You simply receive it by being present to what's already true. This shift in mindset creates what I call a receptive frequency. Instead of broadcasting desperation or need, your energy field begins emanating a quiet confidence that abundance is natural, that provision is already handled, that everything you require is already on its way. This frequency acts like a beacon in the spiritual realm, drawing to you the very things you've been chasing with so much effort. During sleep, When you rest in this awareness of being beloved, your subconscious receives what can only be described as divine downloads. Solutions appear not through mental gymnastics, but through gentle inspiration. Opportunities align not through networking and manipulation, but through what feels like graceful synchronicity. Money flows not through desperate hustle, but through channels that seem to open effortlessly. The journey from striving to receiving represents one of the most profound transformations available to human consciousness. It's the difference between swimming upstream against a powerful current and finally turning around to discover you've been fighting the very force that wanted to carry you home. When you make decisions from this place of recognized belovedness, every choice becomes an expression of abundance rather than a hedge against scarcity. What's particularly fascinating is how this inner shift begins to reshape your external world almost immediately. People respond differently to your energy. Opportunities that were invisible suddenly become obvious. Resources that seemed scarce begin appearing from unexpected directions. It's as if the entire universe conspires to confirm what you finally allowed yourself to believe, that you are worthy of good things, that prosperity is your natural state, that abundance is not something you achieve, but something you remember. Now I want to explore how this foundation of gratitude and belovedness becomes the launching pad for specific abundance programming techniques that work while you sleep. Because when these principles combine with targeted affirmations, the results often exceed what people thought was possible. When you truly embrace your beloved status and allow gratitude to flow naturally, something extraordinary begins to unfold. What most people experience as ordinary sleep transforms into what can only be called a night of miracles. This isn't poetic language. This is the actual mechanics of how divine intelligence operates when your consciousness becomes receptive to its highest possibilities. Behind the scenes, while your physical body rests, an incredible conspiracy begins to take shape. The night itself, those 8 hours of apparent inactivity, becomes your ally, working in partnership with divine intelligence to reshape your consciousness at the deepest levels. Every limiting belief you've carried, every financial story that has kept you small, every inherited pattern of scarcity begins to dissolve under the gentle but persistent influence of spiritual truth. This process reveals one of the most profound hidden truths about manifestation. Transformation doesn't require struggle or force. When you align with the natural rhythms of consciousness, change happens as naturally as a flower blooming or a river flowing toward the sea. Your sleeping mind becomes like soft clay in the hands of divine wisdom, ready to be reshaped into patterns that reflect your true abundance. The impact of this nightly transformation extends far beyond what happens in your bedroom. As limitations get rewritten in the depths of your subconscious, your waking decisions begin to shift. You find yourself making choices from confidence rather than fear. Opportunities that once seemed impossible start feeling inevitable. Your entire relationship with money begins operating from a completely different paradigm. What's particularly fascinating is how this process impresses upon your sleeping mind something that changes everything. The recognition that wealth is not something you have to earn, achieve, or deserve, but something you inherit simply by virtue of who you are. Wealth is your birthright, encoded into the very fabric of your spiritual DNA, waiting only for your consciousness to become spacious enough to receive it. This is where the journey takes a remarkable turn toward the mystical. As your mind opens to these deeper truths, you begin to access what can only be described as visionary experiences. Many people report seeing what appears to be a great celestial door during this process, not with their physical eyes, but with the inner sight that awakens when consciousness expands beyond ordinary limitations. This door glows with symbols of infinite supply, ancient and eternal markings that speak directly to the soul's understanding of abundance. It's as if the universe itself is revealing its secret architecture, showing you the divine blueprints that govern prosperity and manifestation. Beyond this threshold, many glimpse rivers of gold sparkling in heaven's favor, flowing endlessly, never diminished, never restricted, always abundant. These aren't hallucinations or wishful fantasies. They're glimpses into what mystics have called the Akashic realm, the dimension where all possibilities exist in their perfected form, waiting to manifest into physical reality. When your consciousness touches this level during sleep programming, you're not just listening to affirmations, you're connecting with the source code of abundance itself. The revelations that emerge from these experiences often surprise people with their clarity and practical impact. You might wake up with a business idea that seems to have downloaded fully formed. Financial solutions that eluded you for months suddenly become obvious. People and opportunities begin appearing in your life with perfect timing, as if orchestrated by an invisible intelligence that sees the bigger picture. Now, I want to explore how you can consciously prepare your mind to receive these profound downloads and visions. Because understanding the specific techniques that open this celestial doorway transforms sleep from passive rest into active spiritual programming. The moment you recognize that celestial doorway, something profound shifts in your understanding of how abundance actually works. Most people spend their entire lives searching for the key to prosperity in external circumstances. Better jobs, perfect timing, lucky breaks, or complex strategies. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything. You've been carrying the key with you all along, and it's not located where you think it is. The key to abundance doesn't rest in your hands through what you do or how hard you work. It doesn't depend on your education, your connections, or your circumstances. The real key lies upon your tongue and within your faith. Every word you speak, especially during those sacred hours when your conscious mind steps aside, carries the power to swing wide the doors that seemed permanently locked. This revelation transforms your entire approach to manifestation. Instead of striving and struggling to force doors open through external effort, you begin to understand that your voice itself is the master key. When you speak from faith during sleep programming, when your words align with divine truth rather than worldly limitation, something extraordinary happens behind the scenes of reality. The door doesn't just crack open. It swings wide with such force that rivers of abundance pour forth directly into your dreams. These aren't metaphorical rivers. People who practice this consistently report waking up with specific financial guidance, business ideas that seem to download complete with implementation steps, and an inner knowing about money decisions that proves remarkably accurate. Your subconscious, freed from the constraints of logical doubt, becomes a direct conduit for divine intelligence about prosperity. The impact of this shift extends into every area of your financial life. Your relationship with money transforms from one of anxiety and scarcity to one of collaboration and flow. You begin making decisions not from fear of loss, but from expectation of increase. Your mindset naturally gravitates toward opportunities rather than obstacles, toward possibilities rather than problems. But here's where the journey takes perhaps its most beautiful turn. As you continue practicing this tongue and faith approach to abundance, you begin to realize something that changes everything about how you see yourself in relation to prosperity. You're no longer standing outside the banquet hall of divine provision, pressing your face against the glass, wondering if you'll ever be invited inside. You're already seated at the table. This isn't a future promise or a distant possibility. Right now, in this moment, your cup is running over with blessings you haven't even noticed yet. You're already drinking deeply of what mystics call the eternal feast of provision, that inexhaustible source of divine supply that has been sustaining you, guiding you, and preparing abundance for you, even during seasons when you felt forgotten or overlooked. The transformation from outsider to honored guest happens not through earning or deserving, but through recognition. When you finally see that the feast has been spread for you all along, when you understand that your name was engraved on that chair before you were born, everything about your energy changes. You stop approaching life from desperation and start moving from celebration. This shift in identity, from seeker to receiver, from beggar to beloved, from outsider to honored guest, creates what can only be described as a magnetic field around your life. Resources that were invisible suddenly become apparent. People begin offering help without being asked. Opportunities align in ways that feel almost choreographed by an unseen intelligence. Now, I want to reveal the specific words and phrases that activate this banquet hall consciousness during sleep. Because when you know exactly how to speak as one who is already seated at the table of abundance, your entire financial reality begins reorganizing itself to match this inner recognition of your true position. When you truly embrace your position at the table of divine provision, when you recognize that your chair has been waiting for you all along, something monumentally shifts in your consciousness. This becomes the night you stop, wandering in what can only be described as the desert of lack, that barren landscape where so many people spend their entire lives, convinced that scarcity is normal, that struggle is necessary, that abundance is reserved for others. Behind the scenes of this transformation lies a profound geographical shift in consciousness. You're not just changing your thoughts about money, you're literally migrating from one spiritual territory to another. The desert of lack, with its mirages of false hope and its endless cycles of thirst, gives way to the promised land of spiritual abundance, where rivers flow freely and trees bear fruit in every season. This isn't gradual progress or slow improvement. This is exodus, a complete departure from the old paradigm into a realm where you are never again separated from your good. The impact of this shift reverberates through every decision you make, every relationship you build, every opportunity you encounter. You begin operating from a completely different set of assumptions about what's possible for your life. The hidden truth that makes this transformation possible lies in understanding how spiritual power actually operates during sleep. Most people underestimate the profound shifts happening in consciousness during those 8 hours of apparent rest. They see sleep as downtime, as a break from productivity, as mere biological maintenance. But here's what changes everything. In sleep, your power is magnified beyond measure. Think about what happens when your conscious mind finally steps aside. All those mental barriers you've built through years of conditioning, all those logical arguments against abundance, all those reasonable explanations for why prosperity might not be possible for you, they dissolve into the background. Your subconscious mind stands wide open like the most fertile soil imaginable, ready to receive whatever seeds you choose to plant. This is where the journey takes a fascinating turn into the mechanics of transformation itself. During waking hours, your conscious mind acts like a vigilant gatekeeper, filtering information, questioning possibilities, maintaining the status quo through doubt and analysis. But when sleep arrives, this gatekeeper finally takes a break, and your subconscious becomes what spiritual teachers call heavenly soil, completely receptive, utterly accepting, ready to grow whatever you plant there. The revelations that emerge from understanding this process are staggering. Every limitation you've accepted, every financial story that has kept you trapped, every inherited belief about money and worthiness, none of these exist in your subconscious as fixed reality. They exist only as patterns, as repeated impressions, as seeds that were planted when your conscious defenses were down. And just as those limiting patterns were installed through repetition, they can be completely overwritten through intentional spiritual programming. What's particularly powerful is how this programming bypasses all the mental resistance that normally sabotages manifestation efforts. When you listen to abundance affirmations during sleep, your subconscious doesn't argue with the content. It doesn't question whether you deserve wealth or analyze the probability of financial miracles. It simply receives, accepts, and begins reshaping your inner landscape to match the new information. This process creates what can only be described as a complete mindset renovation, happening at the cellular level. Your neural pathways begin reorganizing themselves around abundance rather than scarcity. Your automatic responses shift from fear to faith. Your default expectations transform from limitation to limitless possibility. Now, I want to explore the specific scientific principles that make this overnight transformation so remarkably effective. Because when you understand exactly what's happening in your brain during abundance programming, you'll never underestimate the power of your sleeping hours again. Understanding how your power magnifies during sleep opens the door to an even more fascinating revelation about the hidden mechanics of manifestation. What most people don't realize is that your sleeping hours transform your entire inner landscape into what can only be described as the great hidden workshop of spirit. This isn't just poetic language. This is the actual spiritual technology that molds unseen substance into tangible reality. During your waking hours, your mind is constantly bombarded with external stimuli, internal chatter, and endless streams of information that create what neuroscientists call cognitive load. Your thoughts bounce from worry to planning to memory to fantasy, creating a kind of mental static that interferes with pure spiritual reception. But when sleep arrives and this noise finally quiets, something extraordinary happens behind the scenes of consciousness. Your subconscious mind, now free from the constant interference of mental noise, becomes like a master craftsman's workshop, perfectly organized, completely focused, ready to transform raw spiritual material into the forms that will manifest in your physical experience. Every abundance affirmation you hear during this time doesn't just float through your awareness and disappear. It gets taken into this workshop where invisible hands begin shaping it into the blueprint for your financial reality. The impact of this process extends far beyond what happens during sleep itself. The decisions you make during your waking hours, the opportunities you notice, the actions you feel inspired to take, all of these emerge from the deep work happening in this subconscious workshop. Your conscious mind might think it's running the show, but the real architecture of transformation is being built in the depths, where spirit has complete creative freedom. What makes this process so remarkably effective is how the conscious mind's role changes during sleep. Throughout your waking hours, your conscious mind functions like a vigilant gatekeeper, constantly evaluating, analyzing, questioning every piece of information that approaches your awareness. This gatekeeper has been trained by years of experience to be skeptical about abundance, suspicious of easy solutions, and protective of the familiar patterns that define your current financial reality. This gatekeeper means well, but it often blocks the very transformation you're seeking. When you hear abundance affirmations during waking hours, the gatekeeper immediately springs into action with questions like, "Is this realistic? Do I really deserve this? How could this possibly work given my current situation?" These doubts and reasonings create resistance that prevents the spiritual programming from taking root. But here's where the journey takes a remarkable turn. During sleep, this protective gatekeeper finally takes a well-deserved rest. The analytical mind that normally filters and questions everything steps aside, creating what spiritual teachers call pure receptivity. Your subconscious becomes like a clear pool of water, perfectly still, capable of receiving and reflecting divine impressions without distortion. In this state of pure receptivity, abundance affirmations bypass all mental resistance and sink directly into the fertile soil of your deeper consciousness. There's no debate, no analysis, no questioning, just direct impression upon the creative faculty that actually shapes your experience. This is why sleep programming often succeeds where waking efforts fail. The very mechanism that normally sabotages transformation is temporarily offline. The revelations that emerge from this understanding completely reframe how you approach abundance work. Instead of trying to convince your conscious mind to believe in prosperity, often an exhausting and frustrating process, you can work directly with the subconscious during its most receptive hours. You're essentially bypassing the gatekeeper and going straight to the creative source. Now, I want to explore the specific types of spiritual impressions that create the most powerful transformations during this gatekeeper-free state. Because understanding what your subconscious responds to most strongly will revolutionize how you program abundance into your sleeping hours. When you understand that the gatekeeper is resting during sleep, you're ready to grasp one of the most profound revelations about how transformation actually happens at the deepest level. There's an ancient biblical principle that holds the key to everything. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Most people misunderstand this completely, assuming it refers to the fleeting thoughts that dart through their minds, like birds flitting from branch to branch throughout the day. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything about how you approach abundance programming. The heart, in this context, doesn't refer to surface-level thinking at all. It represents those deep, subconscious convictions that operate beneath your conscious awareness, the fundamental beliefs about reality, worthiness, and possibility that actually govern your experience, whether you're aware of them or not. These heart-level convictions are incredibly powerful